In the meantime, I do want to take a live look here over at the Israel-Gaza border, zoomed in from Israel on Gaza there. Israel's prime minister urging that local officials who are not affiliated with terrorism will govern Gaza after the war. Netanyahu presented the security cabinet with his plans for a post-war Gaza, saying the strip must be ruled by people who are not affiliated with Hamas. The Palestinian Authority, though, rejecting the plan as an attempt to, quote, prolong the genocide. In the meantime, the Israeli War Cabinet has voted to send a delegation to Paris for a discussion on a deal that would free the remaining hostages taken by terrorists back on October 7th and also bring a ceasefire, at least temporarily. I want to bring in Avraham Levine, an intelligence analyst at Alma Research Center, to talk about all of the latest developments here. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to be here with us and break these down. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, so first off, I do want to talk a little bit about the delegation that will go over to Paris. And really, in general here, does it appear that we are any closer to a hostage release ceasefire deal actually being reached?
So the way I see it, Israel never has and never will cease from trying to reach an agreement, a peace agreement, or in this case, a ceasefire. And therefore, a delegation is sent to Paris to see if there's anything to talk about. Sadly, I think Hamas will do the same thing they did the previous time, which is essentially saying no without saying no. They'll put up terms and conditions that no one expects us or anyone else to accept, and in effect, say no and continue. The situation continues as is.
So essentially, in your opinion right here, it sounds like we are not any closer to seeing a deal.
I don't think Paris is the way to reach a deal. I think Paris is it's worth a try, and I might be surprised. But seeing what Hamas is doing and the leadership outside of Gaza, I don't think that's the way to go.
We've talked a lot over the last week or so as Netanyahu has said that an offensive over in Rafah is essentially imminent at this point. Could that have any sort of effect on the hostage negotiations there?
Well, I think that touches the previous question, the first question, because I think the way to reach a ceasefire is go forward. The closer we get to returning our hostages, the closer we get to capturing Hamas commanders and leaders, the closer we are to a ceasefire. That's the only leverage Israel has on Hamas, and therefore going into Rafah is the way to bring back the hostages.
A question that's been asked quite a bit, I would say, over the last several weeks: where is Yahya Sinwar? Do we have any sort of idea where the leader of Hamas for Gaza even is at this point? I know reports have been circulating about his health. There's also been reports that maybe he went into Egypt. What do we actually know at this point?
Well, the IDF has published a video from early in the war of Sinwar in Khan Yunis. And I think he probably still is there. Perhaps he ran to Rafah when we advanced into Khan Yunis, but I assume he's still in Gaza and not in Egypt. I think he just got unlucky and drew the short straw between Hamas leaders and was the one chosen to stay behind while they fled the sinking ship.
I want to talk a little bit more about the battle going on between Israel and Hezbollah. What is the latest on the aggression toward Israel by Hezbollah? And also on that same note, I want to talk about Hamas and how Hamas and Hezbollah compare to each other overall. So kind of a double question there.
So first of all, in regards to the Northern Front, Hezbollah is pretty steady in the same policy since the beginning. And basically since mid-October and November, for the past few months, hundreds of attacks, between 150 and 250 attacks, with both high trajectory and anti-tank missiles and mortars towards all the border communities and IDF posts on the Northern Front. And that hasn't changed and will continue. It seems like Hezbollah decided to show their support to Hamas and the Palestinian people by joining the war a little bit, and ultimately they're not paying the price of this conflict. There's also another option of maybe they're trying to lure us into war, and therefore Israel is seen again as the aggressor against Lebanon while they've been attacking all along.
And on that same note,
in regards to the second part of the question, I think it's really important to remember that Hezbollah is a full-blown Iranian proxy. Their goal, the Irani goal, is to advance the Shiite revolution from Iran into Lebanon, essentially taking over Lebanon. Therefore, Hezbollah is on the top of the hierarchy of proxies. On the other hand, Hamas is merely a useful tool, a Sunni terrorist organization that Iran is exploiting and even sacrificing for their own interests. So they're way down on the hierarchy in terms of training and weapons.
A story that's been talked about a lot over the last week. We heard from Brazil's president as he did compare Israel's response in Gaza to the Holocaust. Israel and the U.S., they both pushed back on that as Brazil's president says he is not going to apologize. Israel, of course, saying he is no longer welcome there. What message, if any, does those comments kind of send to the world as a whole regarding this war?
Well, I think it's sad to see President of Brazil jumping on the anti-Semitic bandwagon, this new wave in the past few months against Israel. Clearly, he has a lot of homework in terms of history and current Middle East affairs. I think it sends many people in the world the wrong message, and I think clearly uneducated saying. And I was happy to see that even his own parliament members, I think over 100, completely disagree. So there is a silver lining there.
There was another Palestinian terror attack that killed an Israeli man and wounded nearly a dozen others just yesterday. Were these attacks happening as frequently prior to the war? We know that there has been violence in the Middle East here, especially when you're talking about between Israel and Hamas, Palestine. So essentially, is this something that was happening as much prior to the war?
Without getting into the numbers, really diving in, the answer is yes. The answer is attacks never ceased, not only in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, but all over Israel. This happened and is still happening. Palestinian terrorists never gave up on the notion that this is their way to freedom, to independence, to whatever they're thriving to achieve. And I think it raises another question when we think of what's the ultimate goal that we have in Gaza and who will be in control there. If the Palestinian Authority is not controlling their people and is still paying and supporting terrorist organizations in one way or another, that raises the question, will they be the right solution when we look at Gaza to the future?
All right. Avraham Levine, thank you so much for taking the time to break down some of the latest developments there on the war. Is there anything else you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
Well, just to make the point that I think Israel's government, administration, and the IDF are only doing what's expected from every other state, and that's to defend our civilians. And I think everything else should be put aside right now. We'll finish our business. We're winning. It's taking a long time, but IDF is doing an amazing job in a very complex situation in terms of urban warfare, human shield tactic, and underground that was prepared for us for over a decade. And I think we'll finish the business here and get back to our normal lives.
All right, Avraham, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Great day.
And I do want to take a look at this tweet that was posted by President Biden. He said, "I won't mince words. The overwhelming majority of Palestinians are not Hamas, and Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. In fact, they're also suffering as a result of Hamas's terrorism. We need to be clear-eyed about that reality." We also have some other posts here coming in from the Israel War Room that do actually show some video. Take a look at your screen here. As the Israel War Room did say that the IDF says forces eliminated members of a terrorist cell in Gaza who fired an RPG at troops while carrying an explosive device. Soldiers located dozens of rockets, mortar shells, and explosive devices during targeted counter-terrorism raids. Again, that video once again posted by the Israeli War Room. They also posted this video saying a terrorist who was on his way to commit a terror attack and who carried out several shooting attacks over the past weeks was eliminated in an Israeli drone strike. They did say last night in a joint IDF and ISA activity directed by IDF and ISA intelligence, an IDF UAV did eliminate the man, a resident of that area, and an Islamic Jihad terrorist who had previously been detained for his involvement in the terrorist organization's military activities. Again, all these developments coming in pretty much on an hourly basis, so we'll keep you posted right here on Live Now from Fox. I want to take you out to this live image we do have showing Jerusalem there in Israel, one of many cameras that we have across the Middle East.